TVA is gone.
I think you mean ATV, and no, we got in 2 of them last week.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in the mid-season trailer for Loki Season 2. Now, normally, I probably wouldn't cover this trailer, but there is so much new information in this that brings us to the last 2 episodes of this series, and frankly, I don't understand a lot of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out everything that's new in here, everything that kind of widens the mystery of episode 4, and then in a little bit I'm going to talk to our old friend Colton Ogburn, the guy who lives inside the television but he doesn't know it, so please don't tell him. And then me and Colton are going to try to figure out what the hell's actually going to happen in these last couple episodes. Potential spoilers, we don't actually know what's going to happen. We're just going to look at the footage that's out there and make our best honest guess for you guys. Again, this is the kind of thing that we probably wouldn't normally cover, but this is so mind-blowing, some of the stuff in this trailer. I want to talk to all you guys in the comments, find out what you think of it, get all your theories. And again, guys, thank you so much for just being a part of our community, supporting our channel, continuing to shop our merch store where we design all the shirts ourselves. We have brand new shirts like the creepy Miss Minutes pinup tee, the usual variants like the usual suspects, but with time travelers. It's awesome. The ScreenCrush variant hoodie, lots of others. You shop the store all the time. Thank you so much for your continued support. So let's take a look at everything in this trailer. First of all, I'm going to list all the new stuff that we see. So we start off with this new scene where they're asking Loki, how much do you know? And he says, assume I don't know much, but I'm a god. And then we get lots of these flashes that show Loki on that bridge. We've pointed out in the past that this bridge seems like it's kind of modeled off the Bifrost, and how there's a lot of Asgardian type imagery throughout the TVA, which, you know what, by the end of the series we may find out there's a reason for that. Maybe Loki actually built the TVA. And we see Sylvie at her house. This looks like it's in the 1980s, but she's still wearing her battle gear, so she's not in her McDonald's clothes, and she's putting on a record. Again, we've talked all throughout the series, season 1 and 2, about Loki and loops and circles, and a record player is definitely a loop and a circle. Just like a track that goes around in one circle that is predetermined, kind of like the path that He Who Remains sets up for everybody. And then we see a prison, and we see Casey and a few other people breaking out. I have a theory about what this could be that I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. And then we see Mobius, probably in his original timeline, and later on we see that he is working at a water sports store, like we speculated after seeing the very first trailer. Then we see Miss Minutes on this screen, and the screen is turning into spaghetti, just a lot of things around the TVA, and she says here, thank you for your service. And then we see Loki time slipping and kind of surrounded by spaghetti, and this might actually be what time slipping looks like from his point of view. The spaghetti also it looks like timelines and different strands. I'm going to talk to Colton about that in just a little bit. Then we see the shot from the original trailer of Loki appearing in front of the ATV place, and there's flashes of everybody who was there when this multiversal loom ruptured. And Miss Minutes here is saying access denied, but it looks like these are the hands of one Victor Timley, He Who Remains, who should always have access to Miss Minutes. That's very interesting. And then we see Loki seeing himself as he's looking through the TVA manual before he time slips. That's actually a big clue as to what's going to happen in the next couple episodes. I'm going to talk to Colton about. And then we see this scene where OB talks about Loki being too late and Mobius losing his skin. This is, of course, almost a line-for-line repeat of a scene that we saw earlier. Now, this could actually be that scene from episode 1, or this could just show how all these events are looping. I think Colton has a theory on that he's going to talk about in just a little bit. And then we see Timely finishing the mission. We see after he turned into spaghetti at the end of episode 4. You remember how episode 4 ended, the big shocker, Timely turns into spaghetti, TVA is about to be destroyed, but now we see Timely actually getting to finish his mission, and I'm not sure what the hell that's going to be about. Now, this shot here looks like a shot we've seen from before, within the sacred timeline, except now it's green. And these green strands then turn into the noodle strands that we saw floating past Loki and Sylvie. So I wonder if this is a hint that the sacred timeline was originally built by the Lokis via their enchantment magic, meaning that He Who Remains has actually been using Loki for all along. Now, this room here, this big room, looks like it's OB's repair shop, but it's without all of his stuff in it, right? And notice there's these fans up in the background. Fans obviously move in circles and loops, and the fans kind of look like those windows in He Who Remains Palace that we saw at the end of season 1. And then we see Ravonna in the void at the end of time. Looks like she's about to be eaten by Eliath. We put out a video last week about this where we speculated that Ravonna actually meets future Kang in this spot. And then there's this interesting flash here in Believe, but we see Lie for a second, right? So Loki is the Prince of Lies, the God of Mischief, But I'm also wondering if this means that there's some kind of lie here at the heart of the TVA, that everything's not what it seems. You know, if like everything in the TVA, like this system of belief everybody's built up, is actually built on a lie. Loki is now on the walkway where Victor Timley was, and we see a reverse of the ending of episode 4, where episode 4 ended with like Loki's face fading to white. Now we see it coming from white and like fading back to him. Again, we see time slipping from Loki's point of view, and then everybody at this title card, this looks like everybody's variant selves. Like we have B-15 in like scrubs, like she was a doctor or a nurse. We have OB in a repair tech uniform, Mobius in his jet ski stuff, Casey in a prison uniform. So what in the hell is actually going on here? I'm so happy to have our friend Colton Ogburn. Remember, Colton is the guy who lives inside of our television, but he does not know it, so please don't tell him. Colton, I want to go through this whole list with you again about things that are different in this trailer, and let's wildly speculate for a few minutes on what the hell is going on here. And as always, people, let us know down in the comments if you think our theories are great, if you have your own theories, if we missed something. Again, like we're staying out of spoiler territory as much as we can, but you know, we're going to be guessing what happens, and I guarantee you somebody's going to get something right between me and Colton or any of you guys. Okay, first of all, we have this new scene where Loki and everybody are talking, like it's like they're filling him in on information. He says, "Assume I don't know anything."
Right.
We see throughout this trailer, like Loki, whatever happens at the end of this episode, right? Time slipping's he's gonna start time slipping again.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you think that's what's happening here? Is he time slipping again?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that the end of last episode, we're seeing the temporal loom explode, and I think that's definitely going to, continue and perhaps blow up the whole TVA, but Loki is going to time slip away at the last second, and he's basically getting a mulligan to try and do it again. And I think we're going to see it happen several times. I think they're going to try again and again and again, trying to save the temporal loom. It was good to see that Timely is going to come back. I really enjoyed that character, and I think we're going to see him get spaghettified a time or two more.
Over and over again. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds great. So my question is then, if he's going to go back and get to do things over and over again, right? So far, when he's traveled back in time, we've seen it be like an Ora Boris, like he had to prune himself, right? Do we not think that's true of him changing the past of the TVA itself? Because here's the thing. We see Loki give OB the nickname in the episode 1, but OB thinks that Mobius gave him the nickname. So what if Mobius was supposed to give him the nickname, right? Like that's how the timeline was supposed to go, but Loki disrupted that.
Right.
So maybe now what we're seeing, like you said, is Loki time slipping, trying again and again, but every time he does that, it's kind of like in What If, when Doctor Strange tried to rewrite reality, he turned his whole universe into like black spaghetti. Maybe that's what's causing the spaghettification. What do you think?
I think so, and I'm conflicted. Part of me feels like Loki is doing exactly what He Who Remains wanted to happen. Like we did that video talking about how the moment Timely spaghettified, perhaps that sent his temporal, what's it called? His temporal aura. Maybe it sent his temporal aura across all of space and time, and that created all the Kangs. Well, like we just talked about here, I think we could see Timely get killed again and again and again, and maybe that's what's spreading the Kangs throughout all time and space, and that could create He Who Remains. But at the same time, you brought up Doctor Strange and What If. It could be that Loki, in his attempt to save this temporal loom, is actually making things worse than if he just left it alone. So yeah, I do think
God of mischief.
Yeah, exactly. And he's inadvertently fulfilling his destiny of chaos and Ragnarok and destruction.
Right. So one thing, if you look at the last shot of the trailer, maybe not the very last shot, but the shot of the trailer with the title card, right? We do see all the people who were there on that bridge, but we see them as they're who they were on the timeline. So we got Mobius and like his ATV salesman. We've got Hunter B-15 in scrubs. Casey is wearing, Casey's wearing a prison uniform, and we see him breaking out of prison. I don't remember what OB is wearing. But Sylvie, we see her wearing her Loki stuff, right? Even when she's in her apartment in the 80s and listening to records, she's got her Loki stuff on. And trust me, I was alive in the 80s. That's what that couch is. That's an 80s couch. It actually came from the 70s, but you can tell by how cracked it is. So do you think that everybody, when that happened, like when the TVA was destroyed, was everybody like returned to their timelines? Is that why he's going around collecting them? What the hell's going on there?
Yeah, I was unclear about that. I mean, I think it's certainly possible that we'll learn that the TVA was destroyed and so were all of they, except for Loki. Loki time slipped away and maybe all of them suffered the same fate as Timely. But that is kind of a gruesome thing to think of. I'd rather think that perhaps they just got returned to their proper places in time. And like we saw in this trailer, Loki's smart. Why is he trying to explain to who is obviously like a jet ski salesman, Mobius, why is he trying to tell him about the TVA? He understands that that's not Agent Mobius, so
yeah.
do it.
Well, maybe he doesn't understand that, because later we do see everybody together in their regular variant, their
Right.
regular clothes, right? Their regular timeline. So maybe he found them. Maybe he's able to control his time slipping in a way, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say you might be onto something with maybe that is that Mobius and he's just not remembering. Yeah, so maybe he's trying to rejog his memory
And
on that.
somehow Loki knows that too. And, you know, all through the TVA, you know, we saw the TVA destroyed at the end of this last episode. Loki says the TVA is gone. And then we see various things in the TVA turn to spaghetti, like the Miss Minutes screen where it says, thank you for your service. That was interesting. That was a pre-programmed thing, like in case the TVA was destroyed, to thank all of the variants who worked there. And that definitely seems to me like if, like we've talked about numerous videos, how the MCU's in a time loop. We put a video up today about that. And how He Who Remains would have planned all this. It would have been part of the plan for Timely to get the thing and all, the manual and all that stuff. So maybe Miss Minutes is thanking for your service because this was what she was programmed to do at this exact point. Right?
Part of the plan, yeah.
All part of the plan.
And I noticed something in the title cards that were coming up when it said, you won't believe what's coming.
And it was lie, right?
Lie, yes.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier, yeah.
It dropped off. He Who Remains, he's a liar. He's a showman. So yeah, I think that we're about to learn what's not really going to be shocking to us is that, yeah, I think that it's all going according to plan. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked last week too. We had our friend Adam Lloyd on, and we talked to him, and he mentioned like how there's all of this Asgardian imagery around the TVA, the Loki horns in the hallway, the statues and the gods and the rainbow bridge, the Bifrost going out to the loom. Maybe it'll turn out that Loki actually built the TVA, you know, or helped rebuild the TVA, which in fact actually built the TVA to begin with.
Yeah, I love the retro causality that they're going with here.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned in previous discussions we've had that I'm not a fan of time travel, but Loki is doing it well. I never thought I would say that I like retro causality, which means, you know, like effect actually being what causes the cause of that effect. I think it's really interesting how they're handling it.
Yeah, I think so too. I love the Ora Boris loop. It was very easy to predict in the first episode what was going on, and I think that's kind of like in any good mystery, you need like the low-hanging fruit for people to think they've solved it before you get into like the real mystery, you know? In this case, it was sort of easy to predict that, you know, you introduce a character called Ora Boris, and then somebody prunes Loki. It's not too hard to put together that Loki's going to prune himself. But as for now, because there's unlimited possibilities on how they could write this, I really have no idea what's going on, which makes this fun, because I don't consider this really a spoiler video, because we could be wrong. This could literally be anything that's about that to happen.
I think that this teaser is telling the truth about we won't believe what's coming. That's what we got in season 1. Season 1 really made it seem like there was going to be a Loki variant at the end of time. And, you know, there were just rumors at the time about Jonathan Majors being Kang and being this guy at the end of time. Like, we did not know for sure who was going to be behind that elevator door when it opened in the season 1 finale. And when I saw Jonathan Majors sitting there, I remember just being like, oh my God, it was true.
It's Kang.
So,
yeah, man.
and that was kind of crazy at the time. You know, it's like, wow, they're actually introducing this. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do something similar for season 2, give us something we're not expecting.
Yeah, and speaking of Jonathan Majors, there's a part where we see somebody holding a temp pad with Miss Minutes on it, where she's going, and it looks like it's Victor Timely's hands. So that looks like it was Victor Timely being denied, which is interesting because he's supposed to have the temporal aura of He Who Remains, so how in the hell could he be denied, and is this still part of the plan of He Who Remains? There's a part in this where we see Loki looking through the TVA manual, right? And then in the background, somebody time slips. I think that the Loki looking through the TVA manual was him in the past. The version of himself that's looking at the manual is Loki from the past. And that's current Loki time slipping in the background. Do you agree?
Right. Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
Okay, so I guess we're going to see him do that all the way through. But again, it's so interesting because it was like this clockwork kind of organization where he had to. Basically, he pruned himself at the end of episode 1 because he was always going to prune himself. It's the type of time travel that happens because it was always going to happen, like Interstellar. But now, do you think that we're going to see that continue? I guess not, because you said it's going to change the past. So Loki's going to keep going back and doing several do-overs. We see it happen. So he's going to be doing do-overs with Victor Timley. So he's going to be changing the past. So I guess once the loom ruptures, the structure's just gone, and then it's like he's just going to be branching timelines like crazy inside the TVA. Do you think that's what's up?
I guess so. I mean, and we've also talked about how time works differently in the TVA, and how you're seemingly able to alter the past in the TVA, but I think that's because it's within an Ora Boris and it's supposed to occur that way, if that makes sense. But yeah, we did see Timely eventually completes the mission. So I don't know if we're going to have a happy ending. I sincerely doubt it. I seriously doubt that we're going to see the temporal loom survive. And another thing that we saw in this teaser that we also saw in the original trailer for season 2 is Loki in his TVA jumpsuit with the TVA collar. Looks really distraught. I think that could be how this season ends. I don't think it's going to end on a happy note for Loki. Yeah.
Just him, same Loki arrested all over again by a different TVA.
Right. And
wow.
Yeah, and he has all these memories of what's gone down. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. There's rumors about the TVA being in Deadpool, right? I don't know if they're true or not, but like, let's assume this season is not the last we see of the TVA. It does seem like a really fun way to introduce the TVA in Deadpool, or sorry, a way to introduce Loki in Deadpool or Avengers Kang Dynasty is for Loki to be in custody at the end of like at the beginning of the movie, and for Thor to break him out of jail, kind of like Dark World. You know what I mean? It's like poetry and rhymes, all that stuff. Yeah, that'd be really neat, because then he would be the key to like figuring all that out. Mm-hmm. It's also interesting that, you know, one thing I love about this show is the production design, right? It's not just, oh, the production design is nice. It's like it has intent behind everything. Going back to season 1, right? The Palace of He Who Remains. We had the Kintsugi meshing together of the temple of the palace. We had all of the black hole looking fans and circles and the windows behind He Who Remains that, you know, look like the swirls and loops, and it's all very intentional. In this trailer, I pointed out, like, there's a part where you see everybody and you see fans in the background. I think it's in OB's original, like, it looks like early days TVA, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
The other thing in this I think is interesting is the spaghettifying itself, because the spaghetti looks like timelines, right? Do you think that's what's happening? If Loki's going back every time, are these like actual little timelines or representing them? Because there's even a part where Loki and Sylvie are like facing each other in the TVA. We see spaghetti timelines everywhere. And are they the only people who can see the spaghetti?
I hate to say I don't know, but yeah, that scene where they're facing one another in that room and those strands are going past them, I looked at that for a while trying to figure out what that could be.
Well, she sees the strands in her timeline too. Remember, she sees in the trailer the records. Yeah, go ahead.
My original thought, like when we saw that in the original trailer as well, was what a timeline looks like when it's being destroyed by the TVA, when it's being pruned. But now with this new teaser, I'm really not sure what it is. Maybe we are seeing that timeline that they are in being destroyed as well. But that would be my theory. I don't think that those strands are actual embodiments of time or anything. Although that would be cool if they were sitting there kind of looking over it. That'd be a cool parallel to He Who Remains looking over the sacred timeline and all of that.
Yeah, at minimum, it's like just it's a good parallel to have with all these different things, right? So then there's that shot of them in OB's lab. At least it looks like OB's lab. The shelves are the same. And it looks like the very early days of the TVA. Maybe OB's lab is actually just like OB, his actual timeline, like on his, maybe that's where he works. Maybe that's his workshop. Do you think we're going to see the founding of the TVA at this? Like these characters are going to like build it up from scratch?
I definitely do think, like we've said, it's in an Ora Boris, that, you know, it's retro causality. I do think that we could see, or going to see, the creation of the TVA, and that the creation of the TVA is going to stem from the destruction of the TVA or the attempted them attempting to save the TVA. I do think that, yeah, whatever it is, I don't know that we're going to see them actually building the TVA, and I don't know if Kang is going to show up, but I do think we're going to get a detailed look at the background of OB, probably how he was brought in and was essential to the construction of all of this technology.
Say, you know what? Come to that point, Mobius doesn't seem to have a memory of the TVA. Maybe OB doesn't either. And then OB meets Victor Timley, and Victor Timley teaches him everything that he knows. So that's completing another Ora Boris loop, you know?
To quote OB, that makes sense.
Yeah, it kind of does, right?
Yeah.
Because I do think the show is not just going to like completely rewrite its logic. I think that everything that has been set up was said for a reason. I mean, it's a 6-episode series. There's no accidents in here.
Well, and to complement this show, I know I say a lot that it's confusing, but this show, more so than some other Marvel Disney Plus shows, the attention to detail that this show has, even if some of it may be confusing, but like you were saying, with even down to the set design, yes, I think that they even though we don't know what's going on, I think the showrunners definitely do.
Yeah, and it's so nice to see that. I don't want to keep like dunking on Secret Invasion, but with Secret Invasion, like a show where we were having so much fun theorizing about intrigue around every corner when there was none. It was literally like every episode was Mephisto every single time. And this show, you know, we were spotted for screeners, but even after every episode, I still had no idea what was going on. You know, we were doing our level best. There's things like Ravonna, right? Ravonna's been pruned. She's at the end of time. I seriously doubt she's just going to get eaten by Eliath. Anything could happen. She could meet other Lokis. She could meet Kang can find her there. Like, I'm so excited by like what is about to come because I literally don't know. Like this trailer even highlighted even more. I do think you're onto something about them trying this over and over, and that's part of the problem because clearly we see time rewind. We see, like I mentioned earlier, the end of last episode kind of reversed with Loki's face, you know, going like less bright, you know, like they're rewinding, and then we finally see Loki on that bridge, just doing this for himself. Maybe because he's a god, he can withstand the temporal energy. I'm not sure.
I think that's probably definitely the finale, like toward the end of the finale, where Loki finally just says, okay, I'm doing it myself. I think he may realize
like Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah. I think, and we have to keep in mind, Loki, as much as we talk about the multiverse saga, Loki's a time travel show. It always has been. And Marvel is intertwined time travel and multiverse stuff, but the first season, that was a time travel show. This season has been a time travel show, and I love that they've really, you know, delved into that. But yeah, I think we're going to, like I mentioned a little earlier, I think we're going to see Victor Timely get spaghettified a lot, and I do think that's going to tie into our Kang theory.
Yeah, and again, like this show just shows like how great Marvel TV can be. Eric Martin and his team have just, it's been fantastic. They were fantastic on season 1, fantastic on season 2. All the changes going on at Marvel, I know everybody's a little shook up by it, but like when you have talent like this putting this show together, it makes me so excited for like what's going to come next, and especially these last 2 episodes. And guys, you know, continue to watch here at ScreenCrush with us. You can get me or Colton. Our Twitter handles are down below. Tell us what you think of the episode down in the comments, and if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.